In lesson 15, part one, you were charged and tasked with trying to figure out a recommendation that you would like to make. And then you created a series of questions along with that question for the recommendation and had to create a survey. You then had to go on and take the survey that was created by other students. That was a way of you starting to collect data. In lesson 15, part two, we're actually going to interpret the data to then be able to develop a system so that we could actually make a recommendation. When you look through this document, there are a lot of blank fields on here. And the reason for that is because everyone's survey, everyone's questions were different, they were unique. So you actually have to fill out a lot of stuff in this document. So when you access this document, the next thing you're going to need to do is actually go back and access your survey that you created. So go to wherever you saved it in Google Drive and open up your survey. And to start to fill out this document, we're looking at rephrasing the questions again with our answer choices and our objective answer choices for what we want to make a recommendation for. With my survey that I created, I was trying to determine, well, how can I make a recommendation of you should try this weird food or that weird food or whatever. So these weird foods are going to be items that you're going to place along this top row here. Et cetera, et cetera. Then for the question part, it's all you need to do is with question one was if you could only ride one ride at an amusement park, what would you choose? So you could go ahead and copy that question and paste it in here. And then along this left-hand column for question one, that's where you're going to put in your various answer choices. Once you have this table filled out, then you could, for question one and question two and question three, then you can work on accessing the data. And I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. Now, filling this out could take a little bit of time. So I already went ahead and filled out an example document to kind of give you a better idea. I have my questions up here. I have my answer choices, and then the answers for that individual question along the side here. Once you have that done, you need to access the data that you collected through other students taking your survey. So up at the top of your Google form, there is a tab here for responses. If you click on that, we're going to want to look at the individual response tab. That way you can see what individuals actually answered for the various questions and what, in my case, weird food they chose. Now, if you want to go this route, that's fine. You can look at it individually, go to the next response, the next response, the next response. But there is another option. Up at the top in this responses tab, there is a little icon here to view your responses in Google Sheets. And the first time that you click on this, it's going to ask you, do you want to create a new Google Sheet? I've already done this, so it's not going to ask me that. But if you say yes, then it will create a Google Sheet that has all of your answer choices from all of your surveys, line by line within the document. And this might be, in my opinion, is a better way to view the data. So what I have done in this example is I have already filled out these tables, but basically all I did is, if you look at line number 2 here, this student said that they would try Baloo. And they said that the ride that they would ride was a log flume, they'd like to swim with sharks, and pet would be an iguana. So knowing that it was Baloo, I went through and put in a 1 for log flume, put in a 1 for swimming with sharks, put in a 1 for iguana. Now this one is 2 because I had a second student choose Baloo, and they also said iguana. So you're basically going to be tallying them up. This is kind of like what we did in lesson 13, how you had to fill in those cross-tabulation charts. That's essentially what you're doing here at the beginning of lesson 15, part 2. Once you have all of your data in here, you need to figure out what type of relationships could help you make a rule. So if I'm like looking at century egg here, it seems like the majority of people that answered century egg also said that they would prefer a cheetah. So I could say that something like there is a strong correlation between century egg and cheetah. Something like that. Once these tables are filled out, then you're ready to start working on defining your algorithm. So once again, lots of stuff for you to fill out because on yours, it's incredibly blank. So what you could always do when you get to this part is just go back up to the question that's here, highlight the question, copy it, paste the question. Go to the answer choices, highlight the answer choices, paste the answer choices. I can show you how to do that here with question 3. So question 3 is still blank. Here are my answer choices. If you just highlight all 4 rows and copy it, and then go to the first box, hit paste, it will automatically fill it into all 4 of those rows. Once you have this part filled out, then you have to start developing a point system, and you're going to use your data for that. So I already filled it out here for my first question. When I went back up and looked at it, for answer with merry-go-round, there was only one person that stated merry-go-round, and that was for the fried tarantula. So I decided that if I give the survey again, which you will be doing, if somebody answers merry-go-round, I'm going to add 1 point to fried tarantula, 2 points for balut, and 1 point for century egg. If they say pirate ship, once again, I'm just using what I'm seeing up here in this data. The reason I did choose 2 points for balut is because it had a 50% response rate. One person said pirate ship out of a total of 2, whereas for century egg, I gave it 1 point because one person said that out of 9 responses for the century egg. So it's up to you to determine your point system. It can go into 1 category, 2 categories, or else like when I looked at log flume, I decided, okay, I'm going to give a point to everything, but tarantula gets 2 points. You're going to use the data to develop your point system. Once you've figured that out for all 3 of your questions and determined your point system, that's when you're going to actually try out your algorithm. You're going to have to ask those 3 questions. If you can only ride 1 ride, what extreme activity, what animal would you like, to 3 different people and record their answer. So if I ask somebody what their 1 ride would be and they said log flume, I'd put that answer choice in here. Then I'd go on to question 2, question 3. I would once again need those recommendation things in here. So if you come back up to here, highlight, copy, back down, paste. There we go. So if somebody actually answered log flume for the first question, then looking at my chart up here, log flume says 2 points for tarantula, 1 point for everything else. So I would start this off by saying 2, 1, 1, and 1. And I would take their answer for number 2, consult what type of rules I set up for it, and add more points to the columns. And then whatever column has the most points, that's what the recommendation would be. So you'll go ahead and go through that process for family or friend, member 1, number 2, and number 3. The very end of this document is going to just ask you for a final evaluation. Do the recommendations that your system that you created with the points that you determined based on the data that you had up in here, does it make sense? Does it seem like it works? Does it seem like it's given a good recommendation? Once you're done with the document, then you can go ahead and submit it and you're done.